Morning, Dan. Should we go ahead and get started?
I would say maybe let's give one more minute just to
Sure.
let additional people chime in, but I've already got the record going for you.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen while we're waiting. Karina, can you see my screen? Is it sharing properly?
Yep, you're good. You're good. You
All
can go ahead
right.
and get started now.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I know I've met some of you, but for those I have not, I'm Lauren Ahern and I lead the Matrix Color Marketing team for the US. And the purpose of today's call is really to ground everyone in the situation and the latest updates regarding Logix and the SKUs that will be discontinued next year. So I'll take you through kind of what that looks like SKU by SKU, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who's on the line with us, and will take us through the opportunity that this really presents for our SoColor and Sync Pillar businesses next year. And then we'll come back and look at all the support that we're planning for our current Logix accounts and for those that really are interested in transitioning over to SoColor and ColorSync. We know that some will choose not to, but we think there's a really great opportunity here, and so we want to look at see what that looks like with all the support that we have. And then we can end with a Q&A, but please feel free to chime in during the call in the chat with any questions that you have as we're going through the details. So as I'm sure that you've heard, I first want to clarify that Logix as a brand is not getting discontinued next year. However, there are a number of shades that will be discontinued. And as you know, this will make it difficult for our customers to create and customize the looks that they're used to with Logix. So I'm sure you all remember that last year, for a significant period of time, we had a number of out of stocks in Logix, and this really hurt our relationships with our customers. And so what we're trying to do now is really get ahead of things, and we've worked through a plan of how we think we could convert some of their existing Logix accounts to SoColor and ColorSync to really help foster those relationships and show the support that we have for our accounts. So looking in a bit more detail on the discontinuations, I'm going to flip to the next slide. Here we go. So hopefully you can all see, here's a look at color creams, and the X's indicate the SKUs that we will be discontinuing within the color creams portfolio. So the SKUs that have a blue and white X through them, those are running out sometime this year. So you can see under each of the shades the target run out date, and there will not be another production of these shades. The X's in red indicate that these shades will run out by June 2021. Moving over to imprints, the chart reads the same way. So the blue and white X's are shades that are running out in Streetsboro and SalonCentric hubs this year, and those with red X's will be running out before mid-year next year. And I just want to caveat that these are target dates. So some Logix accounts may choose to stock up when we publish this information later this week, and in which case the shades could run out sooner, or some may choose not to continue purchasing Logix at all, in which case these dates may last a little bit longer. So just wanted to caveat that these are really target dates and should be used directionally. So with that being said, before we go into kind of the support for our accounts, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now, and I'm gonna turn it over to Dan. I think he may have some slides that we'll be looking at to really talk about, knowing that these discontinuations are coming, the opportunity that we have to transition our customers over to SoColor and ColorSync.
Okay, all right. Okay, guys, we're just getting the PowerPoint set up. First of all, good morning, everybody. And I'm going to have you, instead of speaking back with your phones on the mic, just in your chat box, we're going to respond that way. So first of all, I'd like to say, how many would agree that color technology has really changed tremendously in the last, I'd say, 10 years? Hey, Constance. Agree. Yes. And how many would agree that Logix technology really hasn't been updated? I'm going to say 10, but I think realistically it's probably even longer than that. How many would agree about that? Okay. So I have been using Logix since about 1986. And back then it was really cool because it was new technology. It was sold as a pure tone based hair color, and it was just attractive to me because I thought, oh wow, I can mix up my own shades. And you know, they didn't even have neutral back then, nor did they have imprints. So the technology for Logix really kind of stopped after the implement of imprints. And then Matrix did, once they acquired us, they did go in and do a little bit change of the brand. Those of you don't remember, but there used to be Attitudes and imprints, and then they got rid of that and changed it over to imprints, full and sheer. All right. So my whole point is I would say almost the last 10 years, because of the new technology that was available in other color choices, such as Color Sync, SoColor, I was kind of gearing more towards those formulations versus using Logix. So I had my salon, and we were a Logix only salon when we first opened. I added SoColor, Color Sync, and as the time went on, I noticed that our Logix numbers were going down as far as purchasing, and our SoColor Color Sync was just going higher and higher. So for a Logix user, and the whole point of this story is that for a Logix user, I believe that this is a really great opportunity and a chance for them to experience other color technologies if they haven't already done so. So in our agenda today, we are going to go over formulation, because I think this is a scarier hurdle for us, thinking that the Logix users it's going to be horrible for them, but it's not. So we're going to go over formulation, the level system, how it compares to Color Sync, how it compares to SoColor. I'm going to go over some gray coverage tips, go over some reds, and then some blondes as well. And then after that, we'll have a Q&A where you guys can type in your questions. However, because I know how my brain works, sometimes during a presentation like a question arises and I think, oh, I'm going to ask this, and then all of a sudden 10 minutes later it's like, what was the question I was going to ask? So feel free, please, to put any questions in the chat box, and then Jesse and Karina will help keep those in control, because I'm not going to be able to read them and speak at the same time. Okay? So your jobs in this whole deal is that we have to go out and educate the Logix salons and help them through this process and show them the different choices that they have. So to kind of ease the salons into that, we are going to offer an initial intro, and I believe it is targeted where the SKUs or the colors are going to be their choices, because maybe some salons do a lot of reds and maybe some salons don't do reds. So we're trying not to make a pre-packaged deal for everybody. We're going to customize it for each salon. And then the big question, and I would question this to most salons, is how do we use Logix? Because the way that I used to use Logix when it first started was I used to use a lot of Logix Color Cream, which is, for those of you that are not familiar with Logix, it is their permanent hair color line. And then Imprints is their deposit only. And I used to use tons of Logix Color Creams because that's how we approach color. And as time progressed, my Logix Color Creams was dwindled down, and I was using more deposit only color to do create colors. So it's a good, let's start there with that conversation with the Logix salon owners so that they can kind of see how do they use Logix and which do they use more, a demi or a permanent hair color. The other thing is with a Logix user is we are very, very visual as far as color. When I think for a Logix user, it's going to be great and a perfect approach is to just have them open up the swatch book and look at the tones, the families, and all that, because they're going to get it pretty quickly. A Logix user is not going to be, and some of them, I can't say everybody, but if we go in there and say, oh, SoColor is so easy, it's a 4 easy step, blah, 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 that's not how Logix colorist formulates or approaches hair color. So it's more of a visual versus having these 4 easy, simple rules. The other thing is the Logix user is used to a very small palette. So we don't want to overwhelm them with all the shades that SoColor offers, because most salons are probably going to target and cherry pick from SoColor if they choose to do that. The other thing with formulation is that Imprints doesn't have the ability to lift, it only has the ability to pause it. So ColorSync is going to be a little bit different because ColorSync has the ability to lift about 1.5 levels depending on the level that you're starting with and the level that you choose to formulate with. So this is going to be key when we speak to it as comparing it to Logix Imprints. The other thing is that Logix color creams, and sorry if I'm making this, when I say Logix color creams, that's the permanent. Logix Imprints is their demi. So with Logix color creams, the level system is completely different than SoColor. And there's not a mathematical way that you can say, oh, we're just going to go 1 level lighter or 2 levels lighter. Because if we look at SoColor, in the darker ranges of the levels, there are more choices versus in Logix. For example, SoColor starts at a level 1, then it goes to 2, which is still a natural black. So the level 1's black, natural black, darkest brown, and so on. In Logix, it starts at black, 2 is already darkest brown. So we've already skipped a level per se in SoColor. And for an example, Logix color creams, level 4 is a light brown. Level 6 in SoColor is a light brown. So I don't want you getting confused like, oh, we'll just go up 2 levels. Because yeah, at a level 4 in Logix, you would go up 2 levels. However, in a level 8, they're almost at the same level as in SoColor. So that's why it's important, and I really want to stress is that it's more of a visual versus you can't teach it mathematically. And I think this is good because as colorists, we're artistic and we are visual learners. So I think it's going to be easier for them to just visually look at those levels. Now, the good thing is that Imprints, and this is why I'm saying it's not going to be a problem, because Logix level system and Imprints is slightly off. If you use Logix color creams, level 4, and we're doing a touch-up on gray coverage, and we want to refresh the ends, if we used a level 4 full in Imprints, it would be way too dark. So you have to jump up to sometimes 2 levels lighter than what you formulated with. So see, this is a lot of thinking that a Logix colorist has to do already. So for them to switch from Imprints to ColorSync is going to be an easy peasy thing because that level system is pretty darn close. So the only issue that they're going to have, it's not an issue, but they're thinking when we transition from Imprints to ColorSync, just remember that ColorSync has the ability to shift or bump up the natural level. So if we were using Logix Imprints to cover gray, because it's deposit only, and we used a level, let's go in with a level 6, and we were depositing only. And let's say the client has 50% gray, so 50% gray, and the other 50% is a level 4. So even though we're putting a 6 on with Imprints, the end result is just going to deepen the gray hair. We're not going to change the natural level of 4. Hopefully this makes sense. So again, the client has 50% gray and 50% level 4. we're putting imprints level 6 on. Now, if they did that with ColorSync, because of the alkalinity in ColorSync and have a power to shift, it's going to take that client's natural level 4 a little bit warmer or a little bit lighter than what it started with compared to imprints. So in that situation, they're going to have to slightly drop or add just a little bit of a darker tone to anchor at the scalp area so that they don't get too much warmth. That being said, imprints and Logix color creams are more of a warmer, meaning their neutral is a warm neutral compared to SoColor and ColorSync, which is good because if it was the same plus the ability to lift with ColorSync, we'd have way too much warmth. So it's good to explain that, well, the neutral is going to be cooler. However, it does have the ability to slightly shift the natural level of the hair. Does this make sense, guys, or is this like crazy? Just give me a thumbs up or a yes, or initial. Yes, we haven't changed the slides, guys. All right, so the other thing is in Logix, when we're using Logix imprints, the choices of developer goes all the way down to a 5 volume. And this may cause some concern for some of the colorists because ColorSync only goes to a 10, it doesn't drop to a 5. And I mean, honestly, I've never used the 5 volume with imprints. I've always used 10, so it's fine. All right, so with that slide, I think we covered everything. So if there are any questions, Karina or Jesse, because I couldn't really watch the chat box too much, if there's any questions on formulation, level system, or how to explain how imprints is different than ColorSync, we can address those. And then we're going to get into gray coverage.
Hi, Dan, you're good. Just the last one that just popped up from Constance. You can also add 10 volume and Instacure or distilled water to make 5 volume. That's all we've got.
Okay. Yep, that's, for those that are stuck in, I have to use 5 volume, then I would definitely say that they could do that. Now, the other thing is, I know that Matrix ColorSync, we have given the option to use 20 volume with ColorSync. I wouldn't really suggest that to a Logix user because, again, they're used to imprints only depositing. So if we put in 20 volume with our ColorSync, I personally have noticed that it really bumps up the warmth and it would make their formulation, I feel they're just not going to like the additional warmth that creates. So I'm going to get more into gray coverage, and this slide is an example. This is one of my clients. You can see she is pretty much, I would say 90% gray. There's just a little bit of background natural hair color mixed in there. I do total gray coverage, and this is at a level 10. So you guys can see in part of that slide, we're at a level 10, 10 neutral, 10 gold, and just a 1/4 ounce, maybe 5 grams of 10 CG added to the formula because I just want it more of a warm, end result, and it is with 10 volume. So you can see we start with, that's her natural new growth, and I only apply the formula at the scalp. I don't really pull through hers because she's a blonde, and we want to maintain that blonde on the ends without making it too heavy or too dark. When I do processing, I do it for 45 minutes, and this is pretty much what I used to do with imprints full as well. So I time it for 45 minutes. If the hair is stubborn, I would say maybe 10% of my clients I do this, I will put a plastic cap on them during the processing time. But for the most part, as long as you time it for 45 minutes, you're going to get a really good gray coverage appearance. And you can guys see in the bottom slide, right, or the bottom picture on that slide, she has full coverage. There is no gray showing. It's not even, I wouldn't even say that's gray blending, because if you look at her hair has more of a blend or dimensional color on the hair that I did not put the ColorSync on or the touch up. So at the base, it almost appears that she has a little bit darker formula or a base shadow. And that's just because over time, the color sync kind of does wash out a little bit, and we don't have as full of a coverage as we did previously. And you can look back at her initial when she came into the salon, there is a line of demarcation, but it isn't this very strong, hard line of demarcation. And that is what Logix users love about imprints, is that it is a softer line of demarcation, which can be created with our gray coverage, with color sync. The one thing I will point out is that I was getting better results at a level 10 with color sync than I was with Logix. At a level 10 in imprints, it wasn't strong enough, because at a level 10, the only full choice I had was 10RO. The rest of the 10s were sheer. So I think they're really going to love the fact that they can go all the way to a level 10 and still maintain great coverage. Any questions on this? Okay.
Yes, we've got one first. So you want me to read them to you?
Please. Thank you, Karina.
Perfect. Okay, so first one was from Chris Sorrell. Are there any concerns that a level 4 in Logix is light brown and SoColor and Color Sync dark brown?
Okay. So again, thank you, Chris, for that. I would suggest to the Logix colorist to look at the level system and read the description. For example, in SoColor, we'll say level 6, light brown. Already they get it like, oh, okay, so there's 6. SoColor 6 is similar to Logix level 4. But in imprints, it's pretty darn close. Even though the descriptions are different, imprints will say level 4 is light brown, but the reality is it's a lot deeper than a Logix Color Creams level 4. Like I was explaining at the beginning, when we did a touch-up, like if this slide that you guys see, let's just say her end result is a level 4. So I put 4 Color Creams level 4 on her scalp area to do the touch-up. I wouldn't pull through a level 4 in imprints, because imprints level 4 was darker. So my suggestion, or what I'm trying to express here, is that Logix users already had to just rethink level systems when going from color creams into imprints. So I don't think this is going to be a huge issue as long as they visually look at the swatch book and read the descriptions.
Perfect. Next question. What do you do if you don't want to shift their natural? Drop the level?
Okay, so if you don't want to, let's say this particular slide, she has 50% natural and 50% gray. Instead of just using a level 10, I might put in there 1/4 to a 1/2 ounce of 8N just at the touch-up areas, just to anchor in a little bit more depth, so that when it does shift it, it's not as translucent or as bright. If that can make any sense. And a Logix colorists, they're used to mixing like that. They'll get that.
Where do the new acidic blonde and brunette shades fit into this?
Okay, so this is great, and I think I'm going to go into it when we cover blonding. It's perfect because we know that that part of Color Sync, that family, will not do any shifting or lifting of the natural hair color. So I think this is a great comparison, and this is an added tool.
Perfect. Next question is regarding your example here.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do this even on coarse texture?
On coarse textured hair, I would definitely use a plastic bag. Just the body heat will help create a little bit more coverage versus just letting it, the air conditioner or anything affect it and cool it down. And again, timing is super important. If you did 20 minutes, you're going to get great blending. You're not going to get great coverage. It's totally different.
And then another question, why not use 20 volume for gray coverage?
Oof. Okay. The reason, because when a Logix user uses imprints, there's no shift. So by adding 20 volume, it's even going to shift more. So I feel that my experience is that I got better gray coverage using 10 volume and extending the time of the processing so that enough color was deposited. yes, in 20 minutes, you'll see difference, but it's going to be way too warm and too much of a shift at the scalp for the Logix user.
Perfect. And then just to follow up, I think it's a piggyback. Doesn't the 20 volume create the shift more so than the 10? Would you think application of regrowth first, let sit, then pull through as the ideal approach?
Yeah, I wouldn't even go there with a Logix user till they use ColorSync, till they become more familiar. Then you can throw in the little suggestion of 20 volume. But honestly, I have never, and this is just me, I'm not saying everybody, but I've never used 20 volume with Logix ColorSync because I just didn't, for me as a colorist, I didn't like the results of the translucency and the amount of warmth. So
Perfect.
you could suggest it later on down the road, but let's not give them, let's just keep it simple so it's easy for them to transition over.
And we've got one more and then we can move on. So Logix users love the transparency of the brand. Are we recommending clear for both SoColor and Sync?
Okay, so let's, as a Logix user, Imprints Full is not as translucent. If you're talking color creams, yes, but Imprints Full is almost not as translucent as ColorSync in my eyes. So I don't think that we're going to have any problem as far as translucency between Imprints and ColorSync. However, in color creams, yes, and then I'm going to talk about that in, I'll cover it right now, actually. So
Perfect.
Is there any other questions before I move on to that subject? Nope, we're good. Okay, so because of the translucency with gray coverage, and I'm going to compare it to other companies. So when I get a brand new client and she comes in and she has 50% gray hair and she has a level, let's say, I'm not even going to use a number, I'm just going to say she has a dark brown and it looks like spray paint and she likes that look. I know with Logix color creams, I'm not going to be able to achieve that because Logix color creams is very translucent. Okay, so that's the scenario. So just so you know, Logix color creams is a translucent color versus something like Schwarzkopf, which is like spray paint on hair. However, for a Logix user to go directly into SoColor for gray coverage, I feel they're going to feel that it's not translucent enough. It's not as spray paint as, you know, Schwarzkopf, unless they use the 500 series. I'm going to stop right here. But I think there's a huge opportunity because if I only had Logix in my salon and this client's from out of town and she wants her hair colored, if I use Logix, she's not going to like, I'm going to have to go way darker and then it's going to be too dark. So now the opportunity is to say to Logix, if you want that really deep, and I'm sorry, the only word I use is spray paint kind of effect on gray coverage, we do offer in SoColor a 500 series that is going to achieve that. So this is, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So this is why I think this is a huge opportunity for a Logix colorist because it's giving them more tools to play with. So now they have the option of the 500 series. Let's say, okay, 500 series is going to be like spray paint. It is going to block out, it's going to be monochromatic, total gray coverage. If you use SoColor, it's not as, it's a little bit more dimensional than the 500 series. And then if you use Dream Age, you're going to get the appearance more so of Logix, where it's a translucent multi-dimensional. And I have to say, I think Dream Age is a good segue for them because Dream Age is such a small palette and it just makes sense. It's a natural, like the NA series is beautiful results because for a Logix user, it would be like using a neutral with either a violet ash or violet in Logix color creams. So it's already mixed together. It's perfect for gray blending and there's not a lot of colors to choose from. So I think it's really simple for them to get in the groove of using SoColor Dream Age versus going for the big boy, you know, SoColor itself completely at the beginning. And again, a lot of Logix users are doing great coverage with imprints. So imprints is going to be an easy transition over to ColorSync. I think color creams could be easily shifted using the SoColor Dream Age. Not saying that I wouldn't share with them SoColor, but I think it's just an easier palette to slowly get them into using, Matrix SoColor. All right. Any questions on that? And hopefully, Jennifer, did that answer your question about the transparency of Logix and DreamAge?
We're good.
Good. Okay. All right. Next slide. So let's go into blondes. And again, because of the new technology that Matrix has added to SoColor, the UL series is, I have no other way to say this than it outdoes, it performs much better than the 12 series in Logix. So Logix has a 12 series that's comparable to the UL series, double the amount of developer, high lift tint, and the UL series will actually give them, I think they're going to love the results. I did, because at a level, when you're using a 12 series, the amount of lift is maximum with tint. And if it's too translucent, it looks too bright and too shallow at the scalp area, or too warm. Since the ULs have slight background tone to them, it's going to create, still you're going to get the amount of lift, but you get more control and you don't get that brightness at the scalp. You want more brightness on the ends of blonde. You don't want it so much at the scalp. Okay. In ColorSync, so now we're going to talk about the acidic options. Again, that's just going to add color. It's not going to shift the hair color whatsoever. And we have blondes and we have brunettes, and I'm sure nobody's told me any, but I'm sure they're going to add other shades as well. And those brunette tones in that family, the acidic brunettes, those are beautiful and on point, because a lot of clients are asking for, there's that trend of, I think they call it mushroom brown, where it's a cool brown and it's soft. Those shades are beautiful. So I think this, again, it's another little tool to add to the Logix user. The 5-minute toners are amazing for color correction. And I believe the Logix users are going to love that, because it balances it out, and then we can apply color on top of it. I would just really like what we've been teaching to our SoColor users is that even though it says 5-minute toner, that doesn't mean you time it for 5 minutes. You stand at the bowl, watch it, because it might be done in 1 minute, 2 minutes, and even 3 minutes. I very rarely leave it on for 5 minutes. The next one is base adjust. This is a huge service that a lot of Logix accounts used to do. I used to do base adjust all the time. And what is great is that we can use regular color sync, and we can use that in between. So let's say we're doing a foil. They're going to do the same process. You put the foils in, and instead of doing the base adjust at the bowl after or before the foils, once we put our foils in, you mix up the color sync, apply it in between the foils, and let the whole color process with foils between 30 and 45 minutes. And within that time, they're going to get a soft, controlled lift, where base adjust was, we would mix up a level 8, sometimes a level 10, put it on the hair as fast as we could, and then wash it off before 5 minutes. And we were watching and dealing with too much warmth if we left it on too long, where this is controlled, and you're only going to get a soft base adjust without too much warmth. And I usually use the SPV series, and or you could use the new SPP, or the violet tones, like 11B. Okay. Any questions on this, guys?
There was one that I missed, Dan.
Okay.
A lot of Logix users love the translucency. How do you transition?
So the translucency would be for, if you're comparing color creams to SoColor, that's where you would use the DreamAge and not suggest SoColor regular color. And in the imprints, the shears had translucency, the folds were not. So you could just add a little bit of clear to your color sync for when you're refreshing the ends.
Perfect. We're great now.
Okay. Okay, so like I suggest, what I said before is the neutral in color sync and in SoColor is a cool neutral, where Logix is a warm neutral. This is really gonna, this would really affect more color creams versus color sync, because remember, color sync is gonna lift a little bit. So even though it's a cool neutral, there's a little bit of shift. So you're gonna add, you need that cool neutral because otherwise it'd be too warm. So you're still gonna create neutrals, but it does shift it a little bit. So it's gonna add some warmth. So even though it's a cool neutral and color sync, we are dealing with the warmth being created from the shift. Again, when you're explaining how they can transition from color creams over to Dream Age, I would just tell them the neutral ash is like taking Logix neutral and adding a violet to it. And it's a beautiful blend. And you're going to get great coverage with multi-dimensional, not just the spray paint. Here, okay, so for the, do we have any questions on, I'm sorry, I keep jumping ahead. So on, oh, there's a question.
I got you. Most Logix users feel SoColor is not translucent enough as a whole. The reflection of light is different. How do we address that?
Okay, so I would agree that the 12 series is way more translucent and brighter, which in today's market of hair color, blondes don't want that bright, fake, and I know I use strong words, that's just how I use words, blonde. To me, a 12 series in Logix is very artificial looking versus a UL that looks natural. So I think that's, it's a plus that it's not that translucent. If they're creating reds and they want that vibrancy at the scalp, again, with today's, what's happening in today's color, even in reds, we do a deeper base and brighter ends. So I know that's a question that's being brought up, but we have to look at what's happening with color today. And I used to, with my Logix reds, I would add NN, which is a more opaque, you know, not as translucent neutral, just so I wouldn't get that vibrancy. So I guess if they really want that vibrancy, then maybe they could lift a little bit more at the scalp and then go back in color. But what's happening in the color, you know, what's trendy and what's happening, we're doing a more natural approach. And I think it was too translucent sometimes at the scalp area. Hopefully, Yvonne, that answers your question. And again, Dream Age is going to be more translucent than regular SoColor. Yvonne, does that answer your question? And if she could give me more specific on what, okay, good. And I would just explain that to a Logix user, like you just, with today's hair color trends, they're gonna love the UL series compared to the 12 series. I used to, when I used to do 12 series, I used to go back and tone the scalp area. So it was almost like I was doing a double process. I'd use the 12 series, and then I'd go back in and just add a little bit of a tone or glaze at the scalp area just so it didn't look so artificial. All right, so reds. Logix has always been known, they were always known for their strong, beautiful copper reds. And this is where we get into when it's verbiage. So when you look at SoColor, they have copper gold, the CG series. And this is where a Logix user just has to look at the swatch book, take that out and compare it to the Logix. Because if they use copper gold, thinking that that's going to be their red orange, there is so much brown in the copper gold, which is not a bad thing, but they have to understand, like, oh my gosh, this doesn't have as much translucency, back to Yvonne's question, and there's more background color. However, we have 7cc, which is a copper, which is going to be more translucent than the copper gold. So you could take do a little bit of copper gold just for an anchor, and then add 7cc to that. Or you could take 6RC or 8RC and add 7cc to it to up the copper tone versus the orange tone. Okay. And I kind of, where it says background versus no background. So again, like I said, the copper golds have a little bit more background. Again, because Logix users aren't used to this. And this is how you explain it. Just say it is like adding to a 2-ounce formula, you're adding half an ounce or more of neutral to it. So that's how they create the copper golds. And again, the color wheel, the color theory, I think a Logix user can immediately look at the red palette. You know, you take the page out with all the little swatches on it of the reds, and they can see, oh, this doesn't have as much copper, even though it says copper gold. They'll be able to see it. Like, honestly, I have faith in that. The other thing that's a great opportunity is that SoColor and ColorSync both offer more red shades than in Logix. Because in Logix, the RV series, the red violet, is still on the warmer side of the spectrum versus a violety cool side of the red. So now you can go into SoColor and ColorSync have of their RV is a little bit more purple. So if the Logix user doesn't want it that purple, all they have to do is add red or the RC to it. They'll know, they can figure that out. But we couldn't create that in Logix before. We did not have like a plum or a violet in the red. So I think this is a great opportunity. Like, hey, look, you love reds. Look at all these opportunities and choices you have in ColorSync and in SoColor as well. Any questions on reds? I know there's a lot of information for you guys. Oh, we're already at Q&A. Logix users love to mix always. That's exactly, we're used to, we didn't want to just take one tube of hair color and put it in the bowl. So that's a good point. All right, guys, opening up the floor for any questions from the beginning to the end of the presentation. You got me here. This is your chance. Constance, if you're still on, what is your formula for your red? Because to me, you look like a Logix red, but I think you use SoColor or ColorSync. Hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe she had to go away. Oh, there you go. HDRR on base and HDRR ColorSync on mic. That's another technology that Logix doesn't have, the HD series. So again, Logix users, we loved Logix. I can speak from using it since, like I said, 1986. However, I saw the trend 10 years ago where the color wasn't staying in line with what was happening with the other color lines out there, where the technology was just going more and more with SoColor and every other color line out there, and Logix just sat at the plateau, you know, that whole time. So there's just so many other choices, and I think if we just say there's all these different choices, the Logix user is going to be able to figure out, oh wow, the level system is comparable to imprints with ColorSync. Color creams, yes, I'm going to have to adjust my formulas, but visually they're going to get it. She's much more. Yeah. Okay, that's a Sarah. Thank you for bringing up. I forgot to mention Color Insider. Okay, I'm being just real with you guys. Again, I told you when I opened up my salon, we were Logix only. I forgot to mention that when we brought ColorSync over, we also brought Color Insider over. When Color Insider was launched, that's when I brought all the other options with SoColor. And I have to say, for a Logix user, we're still professional, but our application, since we're using a gel consistency with our color, we were taking large subsections. So I wouldn't suggest Color Insider because my salon, oh my God, we had so many issues with, you got to rethink this, guys, like take smaller sections. And it was a big, giant speed bump in a parking lot. So I would get them in to use ColorSync, get them comfortable with Dream Age, show them the 500 series if they want full spray paint coverage. And then if they want ammonia-free then I would go in and present Color Insider. But I think if we present it right away, it's going to be, because not only do they have to rethink how to formulate, now they got to rethink on how they apply. So I think we do this down the road and explain, you got to take paper fine sections. And yes, my team eventually got it, but it was a big giant speed bump in the middle of the parking lot. I mean, it was, recheck. So Mangrave 07. Okay. So Philip, I was talking to Lenny about this, and he has been using the acidic toners in ColorSync. And I wish we didn't call them toners, because I think they're just colors. They're colors choices, not just toners. And he's been using the acidic toners in ColorSync to create that blending without the natural shift. Because yes, you're right. If you use 7V shear and then try to use ColorSync, you're going to lift the guy's natural base, which is going to create too much warmth, which guys do not want. So your choices would be not to use ColorSync for that, but go into, well, yes, you're using ColorSync, but in the acidic family, not the alkaline family. The nice thing for a Logix user is, whoops, okay. Logix user is going to be not to mix a bunch of different colors. Yvonne, that's where I started with Logix, and I do mix a lot of ColorSync. I don't use just one tube. I mean, I'm always mixing 2 to 3, sometimes 4 shades, but let them mix let them mix the 3 shades. That's what they do. We love doing that. It's our customizing color. Okay. Yeah, guys, I'm serious. Like, I always mix at least 2 to 3 shades in ColorSync. I don't use, very rarely do I ever just use 1 shade. These questions were great. Thanks. You guys had more participation than some of the other classes that we've done, or calls that we've done. So I really, really appreciate it. That means you guys are actually listening and thinking at the same time. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you all for your questions and participation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and take you through some of the support that we'll have to help transition our Logix accounts over. And in the meantime, as you're simmering on the information, if you have more questions for Dan, feel free to put them in the chat, and then we should have another couple minutes at the end if we want to go through those. So give me one moment. Okay. I think my screen's, there we go. All right, so hopefully you can all see the business support transition slide here. So we'll have a number of different initiatives that we'll be able to offer to our existing Logix accounts. The first being for those Logix accounts, as I mentioned, some of the shades will have inventory for the next few months and well into next year. If we have an existing account that would like to stock up on those shades, we can leverage the Matrix Concierge service to place orders directly with the DC and with the stores for those accounts that really are looking to stock up as they kind of think about the decision of whether or not to transfer to SoColor or ColorSync. On the DSA, we'll have a number of different materials. The first is a conversion presenter. So this will go into detail
Lauren,
on, yes.
Are you sharing something outside of the Logix update screen?
I am. I'm so sorry. Let's see. Yes, I have a business support slide, but it looks like that's not what you're all looking at. So give me a minute. Let's try this again. How about now?
Yep, we're good.
All right, thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, for customers that are looking to stock up on Logix shades while they're available, we can leverage the Matrix Concierge service to place orders based on the availability in DCs or in stores. On the DSA, we'll have a conversion presenter. So this will be a sales aid that details SoColor and ColorSync, as well as the conversion tips and formulation troubleshooting, and all of this fantastic information that Dan has shared with us today. We'll have updated shade charts, as well as a one-pager going through all of Dan's SoColor and Sync tips and tricks, and kind of a streamlined version of everything that he shared with us. From a business support standpoint, we're offering for Logix customers to trade out Logix at no cost for SoColor or ColorSync. This includes swatch books, accessories, and everything they need to, to jumpstart the business with the new brands. We also have the Matrix small sampling color program. So this is not new, but this wanted to remind everyone that this is available. So our accounts can have the opportunity to sample 8 shades, mixing and matching across our SoColor and ColorSync and Cult brands, as well as receiving 2 16-ounce developers. We have the coupon here to be used for this offer, and we'll share out a recap of all of this information that we discussed on the call today, so that you'll have this handy. We also have the Matrix Color Advantage program. So for customers can take advantage of a discounted rate for color tubes at $5.50 per tube. And we're also offering for a limited time money back guarantee. So if a customer switches over to ColorSync or SoColor, and for some reason they're not satisfied before 3 months, they can get their money back guaranteed. And then finally, for our level customers, so we are protecting Black Level salons that choose to convert to SoColor and ColorSync. They will not lose their Black Level status. And we're offering 3 times level points on SoColor and ColorSync with this with the conversion for 3 months. Moving into our education support. So for Logix accounts that wish to transition to SoColor or ColorSync, with approval, we are offering a number of virtual education classes. So 2 classes with the technical director for SoColor and ColorSync, as well as a formulation day, and then additional support as needed. This can really be customized based on individual salon business needs. We will be filming an e-learning with Dan that will be available on Access. And then, as you can see here, we have a number of digital education classes coming up that are scheduled with Dan through Zoom later in September and October that salons can choose to participate in. So that brings us through all of the business and education support. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Are there any questions on these, or more questions for Dan?
I did put in the chat, I had one other tip that I love is, because again, Logix users love adding, we're mixing food, like you cook, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I do love adding to regular ColorSync, the Demi SoColor Cult, just for, again, you're adding a little, sometimes I'll add pink, bubblegum pink to SPV, just a little bit, just to give it a more pinky, shade. So they have all those choices in SoColor Cult. I mean, it just gives them so many options. I don't see why they would freak out. I think they're going to be excited about it. That's it.
All right, are there any other questions?
Thank you very much, Dan and Lauren. Dan, we appreciate you really being candid with us and sharing some pictures and giving perspective from both sides of the coin, because you've been in both places personally as a salon owner. So super helpful, really appreciative. And Lauren, you've been taking very good care of all of us through this and making sure we have the right the right support to get out there and take care of these salon companies. At the end of the day, that's what we all show up to do. So thank you all for joining this morning. Anything more to add, Karina?
No, I think we're good. As we mentioned earlier, we will share the recording as well as some visual support pieces post call. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Lauren. Thanks, Jess. And have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.